Okay, before I bring in the effects unit, I need to figure out how this works and sounds. So I'm going to create two basic patches, a clean and a high gain. There's going to be more playing and less talking in the paddleboard video I have featuring this coming up in the future. I'm already familiar with the helix, so I know that pressing this is going to get me to the preset menu. Navigate to a new spot here. There we go. Click that, and now I'm here. The very first thing I want to do is see if I can get an input gate on, which I can. So that's good. Instead of 6 blocks, it's really like 6.5, because this isn't going to take up any space, having a noise suppressor there. I'm going to go here, click this to get a clean amp. I think I'm just going to go with a jazz chorus. And first in the chain, let's get a trem sound. Now I want to edit some of the parameters here. And I want to run that into a delay, which I'll just leave on the front end here. Since the sound you're hearing right now is just this running straight into the interface, or sorry, into the computer utilizing the USB interface, this is running in stereo, so I'll take advantage of that rarity of stereo sound and get a stereo delay. Like that one. And I'll just save that. So hit the view and the action at the same time to save. Just gonna navigate here. We'll just name this 007 for obvious reasons. And we're saved. I want to set up snapshots mode so that I can have both of the effects on and off at once, and then the clean sound by itself. So to do that, navigate to snapshot mode, which is kind of weird. It's all the way back here. I think it would make more sense to have it here after stomp mode, but whatever. Go there, go into view, and I'm going to bypass that. Then hit snapshot 2. Again, view, turn them on. Now, snapshot 2, we have the effects. If you don't want to do that and you just prefer stomp mode, which I might sometimes as well, that's simple. We've got capacitive touch foot switches here to assign it. I'm going to press that. Going to go to replace, which merges if you want to have more than one effect bypass controlled per foot switch. I don't. I want my trem there. I want my delay here. those changes. Now let's get a high gain sound. With modelers, I have a pretty hard time getting a good high gain sound until I got involved in the Helix ecosystem here. It's very simple, for me at least. Here's my guitar when I'm not touching it. It's pretty noisy. So let's get that gate on. And I need an amp. Instead of amp and cab, I think I'm just going to go with the amp. The archetype model, which is based on the Archon, is good. I really love the real Archon. So this one. And then typically what I'll do is put an EQ block behind the amp. Usually changes up. On here, I think I'm going to go with the Cali Q. Then I want the cab. I think I'm just going to go with the single 4x12. This. So already, and the first thing I should do, actually I forgot, is I like to put a distortion block in front of the amp most of the time. I'm going to go with the valve driver. We've already got pretty noisy here, so let's move. We're going to need another gate. And this is where you begin to see the limitations of the HX Stomp, or at least I do, in the fact that this is only limited to 6 blocks. So I'm only going to have one more space to bring in an effect or something like that, as opposed to the bigger Helix where I can get 32 of these, DSP permitting, and HX effects, which I'll talk about that later. You can have up to 9. So anyway, let's see what we sound like. Not so good. I'm going to go ahead and assign this to the foot switch. And assign this one here. Okay, so right now we're just at the amp and cab, so I want to set up my amp first. The annoying part about these capacitive touch switches, with this being kind of cramped, it's gonna lead to problems. Page next, treble, presence, so usually. Again, I'll explain all this later in the paddleboard video, where I have more time before getting to the title of this video's purpose. Okay. Probably switch my pitch back up. Pretty happy with that, but let's see where my cabinet settings are at. That valve driver is a little too harsh. Gonna back off the gain. I don't know. That's why I had the bypass assigned. happier with that. Now let's check out the graphic EQ. It's past the 2018 metal sound test. We'll name it 2018. For something I'm just trying to dial in quickly, I'm pretty happy with that. Probably when I watch this video back to it, I'll think it's the worst sound I've ever heard, but that's usually how these things go, right? So here's the two sounds I've got dialed in. Change time seems to be pretty fast on here compared to the big Helix. Okay, so dialed that in, figured out how it works. Now let's bring in HX effects. I've got it lined up into the Stomp via the send return. It's just running as a mono effects loop right now because they don't have a Y cable. So firstly, let's go ahead and get into edit mode so that we can bring it into here. Let's change this one up. Oops. To the effects loop. Move it right in front of the amp. Okay, you might be hearing a bit of noise now. Unfortunately, all of the effects loops on all the Helix products I've used have a little bit of noise. Don't really know why. So the first rule, it's the mode button, pretty self-explanatory. I'm in a brand new preset, hit that, and now I'm in edit mode. Big knob, model list, I need a noise gate. There we go. Simple as that. This is how you navigate your menu, and the action buttons up here. Different. You might even say that this is a little more complicated than this, which is interesting because a lot of the criticism I've seen the Stomp get in the short while since it's been announced is that it's not as intuitive as the other products in the range, and I try to refrain from using words like intuitive because I think it's all relative. First time that you use anything, you're going to have to figure out how to use it. It's not going to really come naturally to some people, and some people will figure it out without knowing anything. Enough rambling. I need to set up the exact same effect in here and in here to compare how sonically they sound exactly the same. They both use the same processor. They both have exactly half the power of the Helix, and they share all of the same effects and sounds. Again, capacitive touch foot switches, just like on here, another similarity. So let's touch this and get a mono delay. I want something that is a bit complicated on the repeat, so I'm going to go for the Cosmos Echo. I also want a distortion to compare, and the distortion on the Helix products right now, I'm going to be honest with you, is not really something I'm to. I haven't found one that I like very much. Let's go with this. There's that noise again. If I turn off the effects loop, it goes away. For some reason, these things are noisy. Okay, so here's a... Just put anything there. I don't really care about how that sounds. Now, to edit your parameters on here, you touch the foot switch for a few seconds, and then it's going to open up this entire menu. On here, if you remember, we had to hit the page buttons and all that kind of stuff. And instead of doing that, you just touch the foot switch, and then the knobs up here will correlate to the space they take up on here. I'm going to leave everything as it is and open up the same exact delay on the Stomp. 600, 7540, 550. Yep, everything looks the same there. Now what I need to do is set up the foot switch to bypass this at the same time that it turns on this echo. And actually we need the distortion too, I'm sorry. There we go. That's our overdrive. So I think what I'm going to do is map the overdrive to foot switch 1, turn it off, and first I'll focus on the delay, so I need to turn this off, have this on, and map both of these to foot switch number 2. There we go. So here is the Cosmos Echo in the Stomp. Minus that noise introduced by the effects loop, they sound exactly the same. Now the distortion, let's turn that off, and the routing we're gonna have to, let's see, how can I do this? No, actually there's a better way. Merge. Okay. Here's our distortion. Sonically exactly the same. Now the big difference is that since this doesn't have to worry about allotting any of the DSP to amps, and it's physically a bigger unit, your signal chain is going to be able to contain more. And here your max number of blocks is 6, and if you remember from the high gain patch I set up earlier, that's actually pretty limiting, all things considered. Depending on what you play, that could be a problem. What effects you use, I should say. On here, you can have 9 of them. I'm going to go to a little bit of a more dumb patch I've created. and we're going to take a look at the signal flow. Wow, that is noisy. Again, we're going to need a noise gate, unfortunately. Okay. Now let's take a look at the signal flow. In here, you see everything is laid out. There aren't any menus to navigate. You do everything through the functions of what is up here. On here, you do have menus to go through. Press the 3 lines up there, signal flow, command center, all this kind of stuff. And here you have more control over what the ins and outs do, pedals, things like that. Your display settings, so click that twice. If you want to change your LED rings, turning it to off bright is going to mean that when I'm in this mode, if I'm not using something, there we go, that could be useful in a performance situation. Whereas here, there's that. Controller assign. If I were to have a expression pedal plugged in, I would route it through here, through the menu. On the Stomp, that is accomplished through the knobs. So if I go into this mode here, and let's say I have an expression pedal set up and I want to route it to control the mix amount, what I would need to do is press and hold this, and it goes through there. How do I exit this? Do I press and hold it again? Okay, well, I figured that out. Signal flow down here. I have 6 of these set up in here, 6 blocks, and that is the maximum of here. But let's say I want to add something else. Let's go ahead and hear what this preset even sounds like. So I've got all 6 of these spaces set up, but let's just say I also want to, instead of the Trinity chorus, I want to add some other chorus, but I don't want to get rid of the Trinity chorus. Well, since I can have 9 things, I can add another chorus. Let's move this block over here and add another chorus. Press the knob. Now we've got the menu here. We can add it through this menu. Modulation. Let's go with the flanger instead. Now, let's say I don't want my chorus and my flanger on at the same time, at any time together. I can utilize that and route them to the same foot switch. So what foot switch is my chorus on? Foot switch S4, which is down here. So let's go ahead and route this one to the same foot switch. Now, that the chorus is on. Is off. Already a big advantage of this. We've got more blocks. If you are not going to be using this unit for guitar and you just want it strictly as extra effects processor to take some of the load off the process of your computer, all you got to do is wire it up as a send return through your DAW and your audio interface, and then you have all of these effects and you can use 9 of them. Chances are within a production, 9 effects is just going to be a ton. DSP permitting, of course, you can use up to 9. Now, maybe that's something that doesn't really matter to you. You don't use that many effects and stuff. Obviously, the Stomp is going to be your winner. But for me personally, when I'm getting kind of deeper into the actual production side of songs I write that no one will ever probably hear, I like to add lots of different effects and experiment and do things like that. I can do that on here, whereas this, I'd prefer to use it more for basic songwriting. I guess pre-production would be a better word, because it will pretty much give me the meat and potatoes of what I'm going for, especially if I were to just utilize the amp and cab block instead of separating the amp and cab, which is what I'll probably do. Use the input gate, which is what I'll probably do, as opposed to setting up another one behind an overdrive, and keep my effects very limited. Additionally, this is not an audio interface. Yeah, it also has a USB port, just like this, but it's strictly for transmitting data back and forth between the HX Edit app with your presets and things like that. What that means is if you wanted to record and you don't have anything else, you don't have an audio interface, you don't have a microphone if you're going through an amp and cab route, you wouldn't be able to record through this. At the bare minimum, you would need this, and you would need an interface, and you would need potentially some sort of soft sim, or at least an IR loader. On here though, you spend that initial $600 and that's it. It's got you covered. You can plug it into a real amp. You can just plug in your guitar, the USB cable's included, go straight in your computer, and you're able to record just like that. Yes, you are limited to the 6 blocks in here, but by being able to get into your computer, it also records a direct signal, so you can always reamp that signal later if you want to. The biggest benefit is your DAW is going to have plenty of audio effects for you to choose from, and if you want to further manipulate the sound in there, it would kind of be like expansion of sorts, not too dissimilar to the way that connecting this to this gives you a sort of DSP expansion. Of course, if you're not concerned with any of that and you just want to play guitar into an amp, as I do sometimes, if I'm just sitting around, I've got my little amp in front of me, I don't want to fool with headphones, and I want to fool with interfaces and computers and USB cables and all that stuff. I just want to hear my guitar through my amp. This is perfect to be sandwiched in between those two things. If I had to choose between the two of these, I would probably go with the Stomp, for the simple fact of it's an interface. I can just bring this and a laptop, plug directly into there, and have an entire setup. It's got a headphone out in case I want to run it into my little Blackstar Fly 3 amp, or I can just plug it into the front end of that as I would with a standard pedal. With that said, I find both of these useful because sometimes I really don't want to have to play through headphones or play through any of that kind of stuff, and I want to dial in effects kind of crazily and go all over the place with things. That's when this comes out. I can just plug this into any amp, and it's a very simple setup, just as simple as this, minus the fact that yes, it is about twice the size and twice the weight. It's equally as useful, just in a different way. They both have tuners built in, which is great. Both have tap tempo, which is great. They both can handle snapshots. On here, what you would do is hit both of the bank buttons at the same time, and in a performance situation, instead of having to lean over and, let's get back to our view here, and go through this for the snapshot, just, you can do that at the same time, and you're good. 6 extra foot switches, I'm sorry, 3 extra foot switches instead of the 3 makes a big difference if you're playing in stomp mode. And the biggest benefit is maybe you've already got an amp that you already love. I mentioned the Archon earlier. If I had the PRS Archon and it's got a great clean sound, a great high gain sound, but I wanted some effects for it, and I already knew that I'm not going to really experiment with different amps and things like that, well, then I don't really need this. Just get this. The drawback of this, though, is that it does not have that headphone output. Yeah, it's got impulse response capabilities, but to be honest with you, it sounds pretty bad because, for me at least, because I don't have those amp models, which is where I prefer to get all my gain sounds from. And for clean sounds, I guess in theory you could find a way, I'm sure, to hook up some headphones through a headphone amplifier or something like that, but again, it takes a lot of work. So for quiet playing, this isn't really going to be your friend. This is something that you integrate into a rig, whereas this is an entire rig. So whatever choice you make, it'll definitely be useful. I think you'll be happy with it. And if you want to go this route and just get them both, you've got, what's that going to be, $1,200 all in. So you save 3 compared to getting the big Helix, but you spend 2 extra compared to the LT. Now, yeah, with the LT, you do have the 2 processors, so you can get up to 32 blocks if you need that. But on here, you have the benefit of having a smaller modular setup, and in a way, you've got the capability of going up to 15 different blocks. So there is that. I know I've done a lot of talking in this video, and you probably want to hear the sounds. Unfortunately, you're going to have to watch a different video for that. I played a little bit through here, but I'm going to have a lot of Stomp content coming up. If you want to subscribe, or you don't have to subscribe, you can just keep checking in the channel. But hopefully you found this video useful. If not, you can write mean things, and that's okay. Thanks for watching.